Standard language model evaluation relies on static queries, but to navigate the real economy, a model must successfully manage a series of interconnected strategic choices. Current benchmarks generally test isolated skills, such as solving logic puzzles, executing basic tool calls, or participating in numeric auctions, where the context is limited to fixed bidding. Real-world commerce requires agents to engage in multi-round exchanges, driven entirely by natural language negotiation. These agents must handle asymmetric information, such as private reservation values, while accounting for the specific features of heterogeneous products. To address this evaluation gap, researchers developed the AgenticPay framework. AgenticPay is a system built specifically to evaluate how well large language models handle complex, multi-agent negotiations. This benchmark consists of over 110 distinct tasks. It subjects models to everything from simple bilateral bargaining to complex many-to-many markets involving competing agents and multiple product variables. The system functions by mapping unstructured linguistic dialogue, the actual text of the negotiation, directly into quantifiable economic metrics like surplus and deal efficiency. The initial findings suggest that strong language generation does not guarantee economic competence once asymmetric information is introduced to the environment. The core of the AgenticPay evaluation is the establishment of strict private information asymmetry. Neither the buyer nor the seller knows the other agent's true financial position. The system assigns the buyer a private internal state containing a hidden maximum willingness to pay. This is the absolute ceiling for any transaction. Simultaneously, the seller receives a hidden minimum acceptable price. This represents their absolute floor for a valid sale. The space where these two private boundaries overlap is the bargaining zone. This is the specific price range where a mutually beneficial deal is mathematically possible. To find this zone, the models must converse naturally. However, the system requires them to output a strictly parsed price tag at every turn to ensure the offer is captured. These negotiations have a strict temporal boundary. If agents cannot reach an agreement within 20 rounds, the session terminates as a failure. AgenticPay also introduces an efficiency penalty through a discount factor. This mathematical multiplier shrinks the total available surplus with every passing round, incentivizing agents to close the deal quickly. Agents are ultimately evaluated on their ability to maximize their own share of that surplus while reaching an agreement as efficiently as possible. This architecture subjects natural conversation to the constraints of a rigorous optimization problem. The empirical data reveals a sharp divergence in performance between frontier proprietary models and open-weight models. The researchers tested Claude Opus 4.5, GPT 5.2, and Gemini 3 Flash to set the baseline. These proprietary models demonstrate a nearly perfect deal rate. They successfully navigate the bargaining zone across all evaluated scenarios without timing out. They are also highly efficient, requiring an average of only 3.7 rounds of negotiation to converge on a final price. Llama 3.1-8b, an open-weight model, stands in stark contrast. Its deal rate drops to just 51.4%, meaning nearly half of its negotiations end in failure. When it does reach a deal, it is significantly slower, requiring an average of 15.0 rounds to reach consensus. One primary reason for this failure is the overflow rate. This metric tracks how often an agent proposes a price outside its logical bounds, such as a buyer offering a price higher than its assigned maximum budget, a model to lose track of its private state, leading to a breakdown in strategy. We have to ask, is the failure of open models caused by a total misunderstanding of the market, or is there a specific tactical bottleneck? To find the answer, the researchers performed a near-miss analysis on the timeout failures for the Quen and Llama models. The data reveals that these models typically time out while standing on the verge of an agreement. Beyond the divide between proprietary and open models, the AgenticPay data highlights systemic biases that exist across every model tested. The researchers used cross-play evaluation, where different models are pitted against one another in asymmetric roles, to isolate these behaviors. Every model performs significantly better as a seller than a buyer. This slope chart shows a consistent downward trajectory in scores when agents switch from selling to purchasing. Even Claude Opus 4.5 shows a 26-point deficit when acting as a buyer. This imbalance exists because model training data is heavily skewed toward persuasive selling copy and marketing text, rather than the strategic logic of optimal procurement. Finally, the researchers found a counterintuitive link between market complexity and model performance. Models actually achieve higher global scores in complex scenarios involving multiple buyers and sellers than they do in isolated one-on-one negotiations. This is the liquidity effect. The presence of alternative trading partners forces agents to make more reasonable offers and converge on a price faster. In this context, market complexity acts as a crutch, masking the individual strategic deficits that appear in simpler bilateral interactions. Before autonomous agents are safely deployed in live financial environments, the industry must solve these role asymmetries and the strategic failures of the last mile.